Welcome viewer to the course of web designing. In this video, you will learn about CSS display property, CSS position property, the different value available with CSS position property are static, relative, fixed, absolute, and stacky. You will also learn about z-index property and float property. The CSS display property. The CSS display property is the most important CSS property for controlling layout. That is, the display property specify how an element is displayed, or we can say that the display property defines the type of element box an element generates in the layout. The CSS specification defines the default display value for all of the HTML elements. However, for most of the element, the default value of the display property is block or inline. For example, the div element as rendered is a block, while the span element as displayed is a inline. Display none is commonly used with JavaScript to hide and show elements without deleting and recreating them. Where the script element uses none is the default value of display property. If we hide an element by setting its display property value to none, the element will be hidden and the page will be displayed as if the element is not there. On the other hand, if we use the visibility property to hide an element, the element will still take up the same space as before. The element will be hidden but still affects the layout. As mentioned before, every element has a default display value. However, you can override the default value, that is, changing an inline element to a block element or vice versa. It can be useful for making the page look at a specific way and still follow the web standards. To override the value of display property, look at this example. Look at these codes. Here we have an unordered list. The unordered list consists of 3 items. These items will be displayed in a browser as a block level element, that is, each item will be displayed on a new line. Because the value of display property for these element is a block level, while look at these 2 span element. For the span element, the display property has a value of inline, so these 2 items will be displayed in a browser horizontally, one after another one, to fill the available width of the browser. So these are the default behavior of these 2 types of item, that is, UL element will be displayed as a block level, while span element will be displayed as an inline element if we do not override the value of display property using the CSS rule. So remove this CSS rule to look at the default behavior of these two types of item. Save the file. Now come to the browser and type localhost display property .html. So this is the output of these codes. The elements of the unordered list has been displayed as a block level, each item on a new line, while the span elements displayed one after another one to fill the available width of the browser. Now we want to change the default value of display property for these two items. So look at these rules of CSS. The display property for the li, that is the element of the unordered list, is in line, and we have set the value of span element to block. That is, we have overridden the value of display property for these two items. Now save the file, come to the browser and refresh the browser. Now look at the results of these codes again. The item of the unordered list has been displayed in a single line, while both span element displayed as a block level, that is each one on a new line. That is, a display property with a value of block results in a line break between the two elements. So in this way you can override the value of display property for different HTML elements. The position property specifies the type of position method used for an element. The position property has 5 different values, that is static, relative, fixed, absolute, and sticky. Elements are then positioned using the top, bottom, left, and right properties. However, these properties will not work unless the position property is set first. Static position. HTML elements are positioned static by default. Static position elements are not affected by the offset properties, that is, top, bottom, left, and right properties. An element with position static is not positioned in any special way. It is always positioned according to the normal flow of the page. Relative position. An element with position relative as position relative to its normal position. Setting the offset properties of a relative position element will cause it to be adjusted away from its normal position. Other contents will not be adjusted to fit into any gap left by the element positioned relatively. Absolute position. An element with position absolute is taken out from a normal flow and no longer affects the position of other element on the page. The box offset property specify where the element should appear in relation to its containing element. Fixed position. An element with fixed position position the element in relation to the browser window. Therefore, when a user scrolls down the page, it stays in the exact same place. The box offset properties specify where the fixed position box appears in relation to the browser window. Stacky position. An element with position stacky is positioned based on the user scroll position. A stacky element toggles between relative and fixed depending on the scroll position. At its position relative until a given offset position is made in the viewport. Then it stacks in place like fixed position elements. Look at these codes. I have mentioned some text in the body section that I want to display in the browser, and after that I have 4 image elements that is used to display 4 images in the browser. The class value for the first image element is static, while for the second image tag the class value is relative, while for the third and fourth element the class value is fixed and absolute respectively. We have also defined some CSS rules to apply on the image element. The first rule says that all the images will be displayed as a block element, and width and height of the each image element will be 200 pixels, and to also draw a 5 pixel solid border of black color around every image element. The image element that has a class value of static, so the position values set for that element is static, while the image which has a class value relative, its position value is set to relative, and the left and top of that element is 80 pixels and 50 pixels respectively, while for the image element which has the fixed class value, its position is set to fixed and its top value is 150 pixels, while the right value is 50 pixels. And similarly for the image element which has a class value of absolute, its position value is absolute, and the top value for this element is 20 pixels, while the left value for this element is for 50 pixels. Now come to the browser to view output of these codes. So type here localhost /position .html. So this is the output of these codes. Now resize the browser. When we are resizing the browser, the image F is also moving. The reason is that the position value defined for this image is fixed, while we have also defined the offset values for this image. The right side value for this image is 50 pixels, while the top value is 150 pixels. While the other image, the image of S, the position value for this image is static, so it is positioned according to the normal flow of the page. While the next element is R, the image of R, the position value for this element is relative, so it will adjust itself away from its normal position. Because we have also specified the offset properties, where the top value is 50 pixels and the left side value is 80 pixels for this element, so it will adjusting itself away from its normal position according to these two specified value. So if we reduce the top value, for example, if we reduce it from 50 to 5, so it will come very near to the image of S. The fourth image is the image of A. The position value defined for this image is absolute. So when we define an absolute position for an element, so it will be taken out from the normal flow. And the box offset properties specify where the element should appear in relation to its containing element. So the top value specified for this element A is 20 pixels, while the left side value specified for this is 450 pixels. Overlapping elements, when you use relative, fixed, or absolute positioning for different elements, then different elements can overlap each other, as shown in this figure. The image of A overlap the other image. The element that appear later in the HTML code sits on top of those that are earlier in the page. If you want to control which element set on top, you can use the z-index property. Its value is a number, and the higher the number, the closer that element to the front. For example, an element with a z-index of 10 will appear over the top of one with a z-index of 5. So look at this example. Now look at this example. Here the image of A appear at the top of the image of F. If we want that the image of F is come to the front, so we must specify the z-index value for the F. So let's come to the code and set the z-index value for the image of F. So define here z-index value. So let's suppose its value is 10. Now save the file, come to the browser and refresh the browser. Now the F is displayed at the top of the A. So in this way you can display any element you want at the top. The CSS float and clear property. The float property allows you to take an element in normal flow and place it as far to the left or right of the containing element as possible. Anything else that sits inside the containing element will flow around the element that is floated. With float property, you should also use the width property to indicate how wide the plotted element should be. If you do not use the width property, results can be inconsistent, but the box is likely to take up the full width of the containing element. The clear property allows you to say that no element should touch the left or right hand side of a box. It can take the following values, that is left, right, both, and none. So thanks for watching this video.